I want to do a quick video just to get down and out what I do to prepare for uni. It is officially the first day of uni today for 2019 semester 1. I don't have class till Wednesday, so I'm not in too big of a rush to get ready, but I am already behind because I was meant to prepare all of this stuff way before now. And of course, these little things are not going to make it easy for me, are you? But we'll get started with what supplies I use versus what supplies I don't bother with. The most important things being books to write in. I get 2 books and I have a specific system set up that helps me learn. It's the way I do things. But basically I'll have a smaller book such as this one, A5, that I take to uni, and it's basically my scribble book. It's what I write all my lecture notes in, class notes in. It doesn't have to be neatly written. I will put a title at the top every time. I swear I just put you on the ground. But yeah, so this book, this book goes with me to uni every day. I've already started using it for just not even uni stuff. It currently has a list of all the baby clothes I have and all the ones I need in all the different sizes. But then once I get home, I then use a bigger book. This one's thin just because I was broke and they didn't have the thicker size I wanted. Once I get home, I get my little book out and I will get my laptop up, open up the lecture. I will then go through and transfer all my notes from the lecture whilst looking at the lecture slides into this book. I will have colour coding and I'll do it neatly and it'll all be nice and neat. I then also use coloured highlighters. Yellow I use to just highlight in general. It's the highlight colour, just for note taking. And then I'll also assign 4 of the other colours to a colour to each of my units. And I'll generally put a code in the front of the book saying, for example, I'm doing Indonesian, so my Indonesian unit will be purple, my equine science unit will be green, so on and so forth. And then once I've written notes on equine science, I'll then go and highlight, what colour did I say? Green? I'll then go and highlight the corner green. I'll do an Indonesian unit, highlight the corner purple, do another unit, highlight blue, sort of thing. And that way, once it comes to exams, I can just flick through and easily find all the different, I can easily find each unit and differentiate each unit without having 4 different books to lug around if I ever need to take them to uni. Hi guys, I quickly did this for you, well for me as well, but I quickly did this now for you guys so that I could include it in the video. The problem is I majorly stuffed up and I'm so angry with myself, and I'll show you what I did in a second. But basically I have a title, and then at the very start of the book I'll have color codes, just highlighter colors, and then what units they line up with. Usually I'd have these a bit more spaced out and have a bit of information about each unit underneath, but most of the information I put in there is like what classes per week I have. But since I'm only doing 1 internal unit this semester, all the rest are external, I didn't do that because there was no point writing down classes that I'm not attending. And then over the page I'll have, for example, on the next page I have Indonesian study, which is just down here. Not very much in focus, but anyway, you don't need to know my horrible writing. But yeah, that's how I would do it. And then once I obviously get a bit more work, I can flick through and have all these corners coloured. If there is half a page of ANS 365 and half a page of Indonesian, I will do blue and purple stripy. This colourful bit is just me getting bored. So I don't usually do that, but yeah. So those are the 2 workbooks I have. This is the big pack of highlighters I have, which I love. all the colours can be used. I think some of them are dark, like the purple especially, and I think the blue, but most of them are really easy to use, and I just save the darker colours for, as I said, highlighting the corners of things. Very, very, very occasionally I will take a sketch pad, because I used to do a lot of sketches for like labs and dissections and stuff like that. But most of the time in a lab you want to just take pieces of blank paper because you're probably going to get blood all over them. But I would take pictures and draw quick sketches, and then I'd go and do the better sketches in a sketchbook. So that's why I had that. The other books that you need are obviously your unit materials, unit readers, learning guides, all the sort of stuff that the uni sometimes gives to you as a PDF for you to print yourself or just use on the computer, or the uni bookshop will print up some for you to buy. I highly recommend printing those, even if they don't provide you with a printed version, just because it's just so much easier to have it printed in front of you. You can highlight, you can add notes in the margin. And then second lastly, you need your recommended reading books. I actually lucked out this semester because I'm studying Indonesian for the first time since like primary school, but I already had the first edition of this Oxford Indonesian dictionary, and they were like, go get the second edition, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to use the first edition that's been sitting in my cupboard for years and years unopened. And then I also have like the big textbooks, which some of the times you won't even use. A lot of people wait the first couple of weeks to see if you actually need to use a textbook before they go out and buy the textbook. But I recommend buying them if you can afford it. Even if you get secondhand ones, it doesn't matter. Secondhand ones work perfectly fine and often have little notes on the side that can be really useful, but do not trust them because some student wrote them and the student might not have been correct. But I recommend you get whatever big thick books they tell you are helpful for the course, recommended or required, whatever word they use, because once you graduate and even just later in your degree, it is so handy to have a library of books related to what you're studying. You can use them as references, especially for the basic facts that you can't really find research on because it's just the basics that everyone knows. But you need to reference them and you need to show your readers where you got the information, or if you just got it off the top of your head, where they can get the information. So that's why having textbooks that have the basics in them is so good. So I recommend you get your recommended textbooks, required textbooks, whatever they're called. And the last book thing I have is a little diary. You can use the one, like just a calendar in your phone. I don't know why half my head is fluffy and the other half isn't, but anyway. My calendar on my phone doesn't work because my phone's being stupid and thinks it's full when it actually has 6 gigabytes of space left, so it's just deleted calendar. But I still would try and get this and carry this around just because it's good to actually write stuff down. It's easy to flick through. This one has a little pocket in the back for keeping stuff in. I actually have a little booklet that has a whole bunch of help numbers. This one is specifically for finding help before and after baby arrives, but there's still some other helplines that are very helpful to just have on hand. Domestic violence, disability, crisis emergency support, counselling, alcohol and drugs, accommodation. You can also write important contacts. For example, I have my midwife's number and the hospital's number. And it's just so handy to write down when stuff is due, when stuff comes out. You can colour code it, highlight it. There's so much more potential than you have with just a phone calendar. So that's something I carry around with me all the time. At uni, I would take my small sketchbook, this. If I was doing Indonesian internally, I'm doing it externally, but if I was doing it internally, I'd probably take this just because it's not that big. It's a dictionary, so I would probably end up using it in class. But usually I wouldn't take textbooks, especially the thick ones, to uni unless I knew I was actually going to sit down and study them at uni, just because they're really heavy. And then the other things you'll need are pens and pencils. I have coloured pencil case, but you generally don't use coloured pencils that much. They can, like, it's handy to have at home, but you wouldn't take them to uni just because you'd never really use them unless you're doing some specific thing. I do take coloured pens. This is a pack I get from Officeworks. I was using another pack of coloured pens, but I only really liked the purple. All the others were too bright. I think there was a green, an orange and a blue. And they were so bright, I couldn't really see them or read them on the paper, so I was using them as minimally as possible. So I recently discovered this pack, which has the purple I like, and all the other colours are dark enough, and they're like a lot stronger colours. I might even try and find a link and link them below for you. I recommend taking coloured pens. They're so good for brainstorming, mind mapping, colour coding if you are more of a subtitle person. And yeah, I take just one of each colour. And then for my blacks and blue pens and reds, just because they come in the packet, I use Artline Smoove. I'm very specific with what type of pen I use. I need it to feel nice, and I like these pens. That's pretty much it. But I will take 2 blues and 2 blacks just because I go through them a lot quicker. I also take lead pencils, obviously, either 2B or HB. I recommend looking at your exams information for your specific university. My university used to do HB pencils and now it does black pens. I think you can also do blue pens, but I'm not sure. But I recommend taking the type of pencils that you actually need in an exam, because you'll probably end up using those pencils in the exam at the end of the semester anyway. An eraser, obviously, a sharpener, which I need to get. I swear I had one, but it's gone missing. The other important thing that you need to take or have is USBs. I'm holding this purse up because it has about 16 USBs in it, but I don't know how it's visual aid. It's just like USBs. This is a pencil case. Definitely take a USB or a hard drive or something. I think that's about it. You're not going to use an SD card or anything, but yeah, take one of those so that you can transfer stuff from uni computers to home computers and vice versa. I recommend formatting it for use with Mac and Windows, just because if you have to use a Mac computer, you generally can't use a Windows USB on a Mac computer and vice versa. It's whatever computer the USB is plugged into first is what it formats to. I don't know if they've changed this. I haven't actually had to deal with this since high school, where my high school had Mac computers, but my home computer was a Windows. And it was so frustrating dealing with switching between the two when none of the USBs would work on each other and vice versa. If they've fixed it since, obviously don't bother and ignore my outdated information, but if they haven't, I recommend formatting your hard drive to suit both computers. The last thing I use is pretty much just sticky notes. These aren't sticky notes simply because I was broke when I went to Officeworks, so sticky notes are actually quite expensive. Yeah, you are so hot, go away. These are just little notepads. I'm going to give them a go even though they won't stick to anything, and go get sticky notes later. You are so annoying. Purr. Mwah. Oh, also the last thing you need to do, or I recommend you do, is print out a timetable. If your uni doesn't give you a good enough timetable, go make your own. I make my own timetable and colour code the units to match my textbook, the one with the highlighted corners. I haven't done that yet, but I need to. I will upload a picture of mine as an example. Also, if you're new to uni, print out a map of the uni. I know there's heaps of apps nowadays like Find My Way Around Campus and all those sorts of apps. But having a printed out map is so much easier for me, and it does get used. I just fold mine up and keep it in my bag all the time. I still use it today. It's also really helpful for veteran uni students when new students come in and ask you, oh, which way am I going? And it's like, you could sit there and give them all these directions, or you could just show you a map and be like, okay, go up here, go there, you're there. Organize the files on your computer so that you have like a document per unit. but do organize your computer in some way so it's easy to find stuff. Make sure you print out anything you need, such as the timetable, the calendar, a map, also your unit learning guides, material guides, lab books, that sort of stuff that they don't supply for you at the bookshop. Make sure you print. For lab manuals and practical manuals, I recommend getting a binded folder. They're really annoying because I'm still trying to find one that can properly fold over so that when you open it, you don't have to have this huge folder. You can just fold it over completely and have an A4 size thing. But I haven't succeeded yet. But it's so much easier to add in pages. You can print out your lecture slides and lecture notes before the lecture. Take them to the lecture so you can take notes on those rather than just on a blank piece of paper. But I generally don't take lecture notes just because I don't have enough ink or time to print stuff off anyway. But that is an option for you, and I know a lot of people learn best from that. Before you turn up to your first class, way before, make sure you sort out parking. Make sure you find out whether your uni uses parking permits or ticket parking, or if there's any free parking available. Find out where, look at this thing. Find out where the nearest parking place is to the class you're going to. Sometimes I'll park closest to my first class, especially if I'm late. Sometimes I'll park closest to my last class so I can leave quicker afterwards. But make sure you get that sorted way before you start, because you do not want to be turning up first day with everyone else that's forgotten to do it, waiting to get a parking permit. Another thing I want to add is just make sure to take coins or cash in your bag. Also, for me especially, if you forget your lab coat, it's like a gold coin or $2 to hire a coat for a lab class. Also for food and drinks, if you want to get them from the vending machine or just are starving or thirsty. And the last thing it's really helpful for, and it will happen, is last minute essentials, such as your pencil broke and you need a pencil for a lab class, or you turn up to an exam thinking it's a pencil marking sheet but you actually need a black pen, or your sharpener broke, stuff like that. And I think that's it. Good luck if you're just starting uni. I hope I helped in some way, and I'll see you in the next video. Which might not be till winter.